In today's session, we are going to cover how to read financial statements for valuation. How to read financial statements for valuation. In case of valuation, one of the most dependable, reliable method is discounted cash flow. Discounted cash flow method would use the free cash flow. So if we have to use the free cash flow for future, we should be able to project the profit and loss and the balance sheet and the cash flow. So if we have to do the projections of the balance sheet, profit and loss and the cash flow of a business, then in the first place what we need to understand is how to construct a balance sheet or how to read a balance sheet, how to construct a P&L and how to read a P&L, how to construct a cash flow statement and how to read the cash flow statement, and that is what we will need to know before being able to do the projections of financial statements. So let's begin with balance sheet. So how does the balance sheet starts of any business? So the balance sheet of any business will start in this format. So this is the balance sheet. How does the balance sheet start of any business? Balance sheet of any business will start with infusion of equity share capital by the promoters or the owners of a company, and then also the debt from the banks or the financial institutions. That is what will happen for any company which is starting the operations. So therefore what we have here, we have firstly something which is known as shareholders funds. So that's the first thing that we have in the balance sheet, shareholders fund. Under the shareholders fund, what you will have equity share capital. Let's say that equity share capital is 1000, and remember when you issue share capital, many times for good companies they will issue the share at a premium. So not only you will have the equity share capital, you will also have something which is known as share premium. So let's assume that this company has issued the shares at a premium, and that premium amount, let's say, is 3000. Now not only share premium, then what will happen in future? In future, company will start operating, and when the company will start operating, it will keep making profit. So when it will keep making profit, part of this profit company will distribute to the shareholders as dividend, and part of the profit company will retain with the company for future requirements. So that profit, that component of profit which is retained by the company within the business, comes in the balance sheet as reserves and surplus. So we are doing a balance sheet of a company which is just starting the operation. So company का पहला साल है और पहले साल की हम balance sheet अभी बना रहे हैं. So this is the first year of this company, right? And I'm going to make this column for the next year. Now चूँकि ये पहला साल है तो obviously reserves and surplus का सवाल ही पैदा नहीं होता है, because reserves and surplus का question will arise only after the company has started doing the operations. Other than this, what you have got the outsiders funds. So you have the shareholders funds, and then you also have outsiders funds. Meaning what? Meaning जब आप business चालू करेंगे तो shares holders or the owners of the company will put money. More often than not, money which is contributed by the shareholders or the promoters or the owners is not enough. So you need to borrow. And how do you borrow? You can borrow by way of term loan that you will receive from a bank, or you can also get something which is known as debenture, which is again an instrument, debt instrument, that you will use for the purpose of borrowing. So let's say this company has also used the term loan, and the amount of term loan is let's say 2000, and the company has also used the debenture, and let's say the amount of debenture is 6000, right? So this is your outsiders funds. Now what you have is remember, in business not only you use the long term funds, but you also use the short term funds. So what is the meaning of short term funds? When you will purchase material from your suppliers, sometimes you will pay them upfront, and sometimes you will buy those goods on credit. So that will come in your balance sheet, then that is known as current liabilities. And this outsider funds is also known as non-current liabilities. This is also known as non-current liabilities. So under the current liabilities, what you will have? You will have trade payables. So what is trade payables? Trade payables is when you have purchased goods on credit for which you still have to make the payment. That's your trade payable. Then you will also have something which is known as provisions. So what are the provisions? Provisions are certain expenses which you are likely to incur in future with regard to the income which is generated in the current year. So that comes as provisions. And then what you will have is other current liabilities. So ट्रेड पेबल के अलावा, प्रोविजंस के अलावा भी कुछ पेमेंट ऐसे हो सकते हैं जो कि आपको करने पड़ेंगे. दोज विल कम एज पार्ट ऑफ योर other current liabilities. So this is your liability side of the balance sheet. Now I am not writing any figure of trade payable here, and nor I am writing anything for provisions, and nor I am writing anything for the other current liabilities. This we will do as we move forward. Okay. So अभी आज की तारीख में कितना कैपिटल हो गया इस कंपनी का? इस कंपनी का टोटल कैपिटल कितना हो गया? 8 + 4 12,000. Right. Now let's come to the asset side of the balance sheet. So this is your asset side of the balance sheet, and again we will make it for 2 years so as to understand it very clearly. अब बताओ, आप बताइए कि जब एक कंपनी चालू होती है और वो पैसा रेज करते हैं, उस पैसे से वो लोग क्या करते हैं? What do they with that money? Machinery, raw material and what? Stock, raw material, yeah, okay. और क्या करते हैं? लेबर चार्जेस, ओके. सो जब आप कंपनी चालू करते हो, कैपिटल लेके आते हो. क्यों लेके आते हो? वाई यू ब्रिंग द कैपिटल? यू ब्रिंग द कैपिटल बिकॉज यू नीड टू बिल्ड द इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर. सो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का मतलब क्या है कि आपको लैंड खरीदनी पड़ेगी, आपको उस पर बिल्डिंग बनानी पड़ेगी, उसके अंदर आपको प्लांट एंड मशीनरी रखना पड़ेगा, और उसके अलावा आपको क्या करना पड़ेगा? रॉ मटेरियल वगैरह परचेस करना पड़ेगा. ठीक है. तो अब नाउ व्हाट यू हैव, सो नाउ यू हैव समथिंग व्हिच इज नोन एज नॉन करंट एसेट्स. सो नॉन करंट एसेट्स का मतलब क्या है? करंट एसेट्स का मतलब क्या है? एनीवन, एनी आइडिया व्हाट इज करंट एसेट्स? Current assets. What are the current assets?
Sir, which are like in direct flow of business in current use, like cash is there. It's like always in use.
Very good.
And stock, and which keeps on like coming and going.
Coming and going. And remember why the current assets are called as current assets. Current assets are called as current assets because they are flowing like a current. As the current flows, so are the current assets. तो इन्वेंट्री आपने परचेज करी, यू टेक इट टू द शॉप फ्लोर, कन्वर्ट दैट inventory into a finished product, and once you convert it into a finished product, then you sell that product, you get money. With that money again you buy raw material. So this is how your raw material is fluctuating. So your current assets, remember this definition, current assets are those assets which are expected to get converted in cash within a period of 1 year. So all those assets are your current assets. What are the non-current assets? The definition of non-current assets, of course, is very simple. The definition of non-current assets is the assets which are not current assets are non-current assets. So do you understand? So the assets which are not current assets, those assets are referred as non-current assets. Meaning what? Land, building, property, plant and equipment, computer, furniture, car, aircraft, train, yacht, ship. These are all examples of non-current assets. So that is the difference between the current assets. Please pay attention. Current assets are those assets which are expected to get converted into cash within a period of 1 year, right? And non-current assets are those which are used for converting current assets into cash. तो रॉ मटेरियल को आप क्या करते हैं, फिनिश प्रोडक्ट में बनाते हैं. कैसे बनाते हैं, किस मशीनरी का यूज करके, राइट? सो that's how you do it. So under the non-current assets, what you will have, let's say you will have land, you will have building, and you will have plant and machinery, you will have other fixed assets, tangible or intangible, right? So let's say, and then of course you will have the current assets, right? Now please understand, the moment you raised this capital of 12,000, immediately what happened, you had a bank balance. And how much that bank balance was? जब आपने ये फंड रेज किए तो आपका बैंक बैलेंस कितना हो गया? 12,000 हो गया, right? So this is 12,000 here, right? And you can see that the balance sheet is matching. How the balance sheet is matching? Because this figure is also 12,000, isn't it? So 12,000 here and 12,000 there. अब आप क्या करेंगे, आपने लैंड परचेज करी. लेट्स से यू बॉट द लैंड फॉर 200 crore, right? And let's say you built building on it for 1,300 crore. Let's say you built plant and machinery worth let's say 7,000 crore, right? And you built other fixed assets, let's say of 1,000 crore. तो आपका कैश एंड बैंक बैलेंस कितना हो जाएगा? हाउ मच विल योर बैंक बैलेंस? 21,500, right? So this will not be 12,000, it will reduce to 21,000. How much? 21,500. कैसे हो गया 21,500? आपका जो बैंक, जो पैसा आपके हाथ में है वो 12,000 है, और 12,000 में से अगर आप ये इतना खर्च कर देंगे तो कितना पैसा बचेगा आपके हाथ में? या सो 12,000 कैश आपके पास में आया, और वो 12,000 में से आपने कितना खर्च कर दिया? 1,500, 8,500, 9,500. तो कितना बचा आपके हाथ में? 9,500 गया तो कितना बचा? 2,500. So 2,500. And you can see your balance sheet is still tallying, right? So these are your shareholders funds. Shareholders का funds का मतलब क्या है? Shareholders के funds का मतलब है money of the shareholders into the business. That's the meaning of shareholders fund. Then you have a non-current liabilities. Non-current liabilities or outsiders funds. That means the money which is put in by the outsiders. And who are the outsiders? Lenders. So you will have the term loan, you will have debenture, and in the current liabilities you will have trade payable, provisions and other current liabilities, and you will also have bank finance. Bank finance for working capital. ठीक है, तो आप working capital के लिए भी also you will have the you will also borrow money for working capital, and that will come as bank finance for working capital. Now this is the balance sheet. ये बैलेंस शीट आपके पहले साल की है ना? पहले साल की है. तो जब पहले साल के आपका जब प्रोजेक्ट कंप्लीट हो रहा है, व्हेन योर प्रोजेक्ट इज गेटिंग कंप्लीटेड, ऑब्वियसली व्हाट यू आल्सो नीड टू, बिकॉज 1 अप्रैल से, लेट्स से फॉर एग्जांपल from 1st April you will need to start producing. So if you need to start producing, then you will need to buy raw material also, isn't it? So let's say you buy inventory. You buy inventories worth let's say 1,000. Now out of this inventories of 1,000, you have purchased 500 in cash and 500 on credit. Are you with me? 1000 का आपने माल खरीदा और वो 1000 का माल आपने 500 का उधारी में खरीदा और 500 का आपने कैश में, तो उसका बैलेंस शीट पे क्या इम्पैक्ट आएगा? उसका बैलेंस शीट पे क्या इम्पैक्ट आएगा? What will happen to your bank balance? It will reduce by how much? 2000, right? So this will become how much? 2000. Very good. And what is the another impact? आपने 1000 की ये लिया है, मटेरियल परचेज किया है, तो 500 तो आपने पे कर दिए, अब 500 रुपये का आपने उधारी में खरीदा है, तो इसका मतलब क्या हो गया? आपके आउटस्टैंडिंग बढ़ जाएगी. कहाँ पे कहाँ किस में आएगा वो? इट विल कम ट्रेड पेबल्स. करंट लायबिलिटीज में ट्रेड पेबल्स. दैट मीन ट्रेड पेबल का मतलब क्या है? मनी दैट यू हैव टू पे टू अदर्स ऑन अकाउंट ऑफ ट्रेड, राइट? सो दैट इज व्हाट. सो यू विल हैव हाउ मच हियर? 500, right? And you can see your balance sheet is still telling. The only difference is now how much it has become? 12,500. And how much it has become here? 12,500. Okay, so this is your first year of operations, and this is how you can see your balance sheet is matching. So anything, and I'm sure all of you understand it very well, any transaction that you do in financial accounting will always have an impact at two places, right? And this is what you have seen. तो जब चूंकि उसका impact दो जगह पे है तो automatically वो balance sheet tally हो जाती है. Now let's look at understand the profit and loss. So how do we understand the profit and loss? So here is the profit and loss. तब ये जो balance sheet है, ये let's say for example this one is ये जो balance sheet है पहले वाली, ये first, this is for 2021 and now we have to make the balance sheet for 2022. This is also 2021 and 2022. Okay, right. So how does the profit and loss starts? Profit and loss, you can call it profit and loss, you can call it income statement, you can call it profitability statement. All of them mean the same thing. There is no difference whatsoever, right? So you call them by any name, they all mean the same thing. So what you will have in your profit and loss statement? First of all, you will have sales. Let's say you have a sales of 10,000 crore, ठीक है? तो आपने 10,000 करोड़ की सेल जनरेट करी आपके बिजनेस में. So then what you do? Then you would have incurred material cost, isn't it? You would have incurred material cost. Let's say your material cost is 4,000. 4,000, ठीक है, isn't it? आपकी कंपनी है, आप टाटा मोटर्स हैं, आप मारुति हैं, आप हीरो होंडा हैं, आप बिरला हैं, आप यूनिटेक हैं, या फिर अडानी हैं, या रिलायंस इंडस्ट्रीज़ हैं. Any manufacturing company in its P&L will always have the material cost as well. And let's say the material cost of this company, and I'm writing here raw material cost of this company is 4,000. Now which is the other cost that you will incur, or which is the other cost that a company will incur? Can you produce goods without incurring manufacturing cost? And the answer is no, right? So the second cost that you will incur in any business is known as manufacturing expenses or manufacturing cost, right? So then what we do, we minus from here manufacturing expenses, and let's say that amount is 1,000. So what you have here now, how much is the balance? 5,000. Okay, 5,000. So this 5,000 that you get by deducting material cost and the manufacturing expenses from the sales, this 5,000 is known as gross profit, gross margin, value addition, gross contribution margin, by any name. ठीक है? So when you deduct the material cost and the manufacturing expenses from the amount of sales, what you get in your hand is known as gross margin. But some people call it by different names. They also call it as GPM, gross profit margin. सो व्हाट यू मस्ट अंडरस्टैंड, वो किसी भी नाम से बुलाओ लेकिन उसका मतलब एक ही है, उसका मतलब क्या है, ग्रॉस प्रॉफिट, राइट, ग्रॉस प्रॉफिट. ऑल्सो अंडरस्टैंड दीज टू आइटम्स पुट टुगेदर, ये जो दोनों आइटम है ना, दीज टू आइटम्स आर ऑल्सो नोन एज COGS. What it is known as? Cost of goods sold, right? So what is cost of goods sold? Cost of goods sold is nothing but total of raw material cost and the manufacturing expenses. क्या मतलब है इसका? इसका मतलब ये है when you deduct the COGS from the amount of sales, what you get in your hand is your gross profit. अच्छा, अब gross profit के बाद में कौन सी cost होगी? Which cost will you incur in business? The cost that you will incur in your business is referred as SG&A minus SG&A. What SG&A stands for? SG&A stands for selling, general and administrative expenses. Selling, general and administrative expenses. Let's say that figure is 2000. So what you have here in the bottom is 3000. Now this 3000, please understand, is known as EBITDA. What it is known as, everyone? EBITDA. EBITDA, EBITDA. EBITDA is also known as cash operating profit, COP. EBITDA is also known as cash operating profit, that is COP. And please pay attention here, EBITDA is one of the most important number for any business. और आप लोग महसूस करेंगे, रियलाइज करेंगे जब आप वैल्यूएशन में उतरेंगे तो आपको मालूम पड़ेगा कि बहुत जगह पर वैल्यूएशन इज डन बेस्ड ऑन एबिडा, एबिडा मल्टीपल, एबिडा मल्टीपल के हिसाब से वैल्यूएशन करते हैं कंपनियों का. सो जितनी कंपनी की एबिडा स्ट्रांग होगी उतनी वो कंपनी ज़्यादा मजबूत होगी. क्यों ऐसा है? Because a business is expected to generate profit. Generate profit from where? From the operations. And that is why cash operating profit, that means this is the profit that you are earning from your operations. So from the EBITDA, what you do? From the EBITDA you minus something which is known as depreciation and amortization. Depreciation and amortization. Let's say that figure is okay, so that figure is 600. So what you have here is 2400. This 2400 is known as EBIT, and this is also known as operating profit, right? So from the EBITDA you minus the figure of depreciation and amortization, what you get in your hand is known as EBIT, or that is operating profit, earning before interest and tax. So sometimes people call it EBIT, sometimes people call it PBIT, but remember both mean the same thing. And likewise EBITDA, EBITDA fortunately across the globe is still referred as EBITDA only. Nobody call it PBITDA, people still call it as EBITDA only. Now from the EBIT what you do, you will minus something which is known as finance cost or interest cost, right? So from the figure of EBIT you will deduct the figure of finance cost or the interest cost. Let's say your interest cost or the finance cost is 400, what you get here is 2000. Now this 2000, remember, is your is known as EBT, EBT or PBT, earning before tax or profit before tax, and in America they call it IBT, income before tax. So it doesn't really matter whether you call it EBT or PBT or IBT, they all mean the same thing, and that is your profit before tax. So obviously since this figure is profit before tax, now what you do, you will minus, what you will minus from here is the amount of taxes. Taxes meaning what? Corporate taxes. Corporate taxes meaning what? Income tax. Income tax which is levied on the corporates is known as corporate tax. Do you understand? So income tax को sometime वो लोग corporate tax बोलते हैं. So corporate tax क्यों बोलते हैं? Because this is the income tax which is being levied on the corporates, and that is why they also refer it as corporate tax. So let's say that figure is okay, 600. Okay, 600 may be a bit too much. So let's say that figure is 200, 400. So what you have here is 1600. Now this figure that you get in the bottom, which is 1600, this is known as EAT. EAT का मतलब क्या है? Earning after tax. इसको EAT क्यों बोलते हैं? इसको EAT बोलने का एक दूसरा कारण ये भी है कि अगर आपकी कंपनी का ये फिगर पॉजिटिव है, that means you can eat, otherwise you cannot eat. So that is also an interpretation of EAT. सीधी सी बात है, अगर आपकी कंपनी प्रॉफिट नहीं कर रही है तो फिर आपको खाने का कोई हक नहीं है. Only when you earn, then all you can eat. You cannot do it otherwise. So as a business, and in business you have to earn profit. So you can call it EAT, or you can call it PAT, or you can call it as net income, or you can call it as net profit. They all mean the same thing. Or you can also call it as bottom line. So you can also call it as bottom line. And likewise sales, you can also call it as top line. Sales is also referred as top line, and you can understand why sales is referred as top line, because the sales is the item which is appearing on the top of the P&L. That is what is known as the top line, and EAT is appearing in the bottom, and that is why it is referred as a bottom line. So this is how you will have your P&L statement prepared. Okay, now let's see if we can construct our balance sheet for second year also. ठीक है, तो क्या करना पड़ेगा उसके लिए? So first of all, your equity share capital, is it changing in the second year? It is not changing in the second year. So this figure will remain the same. Is your share premium changing in the second year? It is not changing in the second year. So this also will remain the same. Now we are assuming that there is no repayment of any loan, and therefore we will see that this is also same and this is also same. Right. Trade payable, also we are assuming that there is no change in the trade payable, so this figure is also same. For the simplicity, we are assuming this figure also to be 0 at this point in time, and we are also assuming that in the next year also these figures are also 0. But remember, these figures will undergo a change, so maybe you will need to keep that in mind, because these figures will never remain same. They will always undergo a change. But we just want to understand the entire process of constructing the balance sheet, and from that perspective. Okay. Now अब ये जो आपने जो 1600 करोड़ का आपने अर्निंग आफ्टर टैक्स कमाया, राइट, एंड what you also have done is the depreciation, and which is 600. So how much that amount is? 1600 plus 600, how much that is? 1600 plus 600 is 2200. तो समझ के लीजिए कि इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? आपने डेप्रिसिएशन 600 करोड़ का है और आपका प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स 1600 करोड़ का है. इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? इसका मतलब आपका कैश बैलेंस 2200 करोड़ से बढ़ गया. यस और नो? इजंट इट? क्योंकि आपको 600 करोड़ का डेप्रिसिएशन का कैश आपके पास में है और 1600 करोड़ का आपका कैश प्रॉफिट आपके पास में है, तो 2200 करोड़ से. सो दैट मीन्स व्हाट? माय बैंक बैलेंस विल बिकम हाउ मच? 2200 अभी का और पहले का 2000, तो ये कितना हो गया? 24 नहीं, 4200. 2000 अभी का है, पहले का है, और 2200 और हो गया, तो ये ओके. नाउ ओके, सो दिस इज वन. व्हाट इज द टोटल ऑफ ऑल दीज एसेट्स? 9500, right? So 9500. Now from this 9500, so let's say this is 200, this is 1300, this is 7000, this is 1000. Of course, please remember, there is no depreciation on land. Land is never depreciated, but other than the land, all the assets are depreciated. So so this figure is 9500, and what you have done, you have to deduct depreciation. Are you with me? ठीक है ना, आपने डेप्रिसिएशन और एमोर्टाइजेशन चार्ज किया तो वो आपको डिडक्ट करना पड़ेगा। वो अमाउंट कितना है 600। तो आपकी एसेट्स की वैल्यू कितनी हो गई 8,900। 8,900 ये आपकी एसेट्स की वैल्यू हो गई। ओके, नाउ लेट अस अज्यूम कि ये जो 1600 है ना, ये जो 1600 का जो प्रॉफिट आपने कमाया ये आपने बिजनेस में प्लो बैक किया। अगर आपने इस प्रॉफिट को बिजनेस में प्लो बैक किया इसका मतलब क्या है, इसका मतलब योर रिजर्व्स एंड सरप्लस फिगर विल बिकम हाउ मच। इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि अगर आपने 1600 करोड़ का जो प्रॉफिट कमाया और आपने उसको प्लो बैक किया, इसका मतलब यू हैव बिल्ट रिजर्व्स टू द एक्सटेंट ऑफ हाउ मच 1600 crore. So that 1600 crore will come here, right? So it will not come here, sorry, it will come here. Okay,
Yes.
right? So अब जरा आप ये सब अच्छा, इन्वेंट्रीज हम मान के चलते हैं कि कोई चेंज नहीं है, सेम लेवल पे है इन्वेंट्री। एंड नाउ प्लीज फाइंड आउट एंड डू द टोटल एंड लेट्स सी इफ द टोटल ऑफ द बैलेंस शीट फॉर 2 years इज स्टिल कमिंग टू द सेम। इट शुड कम, होना चाहिए, लेकिन फिर भी आप चेक करके लीजिए। $4,000 हाउ मच, दोनों तरफ का सेम आ रहा है 14,100 दिस साइड
हाँ सर, उधर भी 14,100
आ रहा है। Okay, so you can see that so both sides the total are coming the same, right? So this is how do you understand this? This is how the balance sheet is constructed and P&L statement is constructed. So just to quickly sum it up, balance sheet has got two sides, liability side and the asset side. In the liability side you will have the shareholders fund and you will have non-current liabilities and you will have the current liabilities, and I am sure you understand the difference between the three items: shareholders funds, non-current liabilities and the current liabilities. Asset sides will have the non-current assets and it will have the current assets. Difference between the assets and the non-current assets, current assets and the non-current assets, of course, is very simple. Current assets are expected to get converted into cash within a period of 1 year, and non-current assets are the assets which are used for a long time and they are used for converting current assets into cash, right? And that is how it is. And then you have seen how the P&L is constructed. So P&L, you start with sales minus COGS, you will get gross profit. From the gross profit minus the SG&A, you will get EBITDA. From the EBITDA, you minus the depreciation and amortization. What you get in your hand is known as EBIT. EBIT में से आप क्या करिए, फाइनेंस कॉस्ट को माइनस करिए, अब आपके हाथ में क्या बचेगा EBT, और EBT में से आप क्या माइनस करेंगे टैक्स, अब आपके हाथ में जो बचेगा उसको हम बोलते हैं ET, राइट? सो दिस इज हाउ योर बैलेंस शीट and the profit and loss statement are constructed, right? So do you have any question, any one of you? Okay, very good. So कर दो, close कर दो, yes.